One of the most important lessons I have gained from listening to you throughout this convention is that you told us to ignore the voices who keep telling us to abandon our conservative principles. We will remain true to our principles.
Pierre Poilievre this weekend delivering his speech, getting 87.4% from the Conservative members that voted over the weekend. Let's talk about that, and let's talk about the possibility of a spring election. We go to the one and only Tasha Kheiriddin, writer, commentator. You can read her words in the National Post and on her Substack, among other places. Hi, Tasha. Welcome back.
Good morning, Elias.
First things first. What's your take on the events of this weekend and Pierre Poilievre's 87.4% support number there?
Well, it's a great number. You can't deny that at all. The base is solidly behind him, and people were expecting. Well, no one was quite sure what to expect, but people were in the party hoping he'd get more of an 84, which was Harper's high water mark, and a lot of people were speculating he'd get around 80. Maybe a little below, maybe a little above. But I think the speech, not the piece you quoted, but the piece at the end where he got very emotional around giving up time with his family for the cause of the conservative movement, the fact that he will never stop fighting, even at great personal sacrifice, that I think helped boost him, because that's the missing piece, right? The human factor that a lot of people say he hasn't really promoted in all his more aggressive, angry rhetoric over the years. So I do think that played a factor in getting him to that 87.4.
Tasha, I mean, we've seen the demographic breakdowns of voting in this country. It's quite stark.
Right.
Like, we've talked about young and old quite a bit. Like, boomers love the Liberals, 18 to 29. The number one party by a long shot is the Conservatives. So there's an age breakdown, but there's also that men-woman divide in this country.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to speak for all women here, Tasha, but like, how does Pierre Poilievre? How does Pierre Poilievre fix that side of things? I mean, maybe it's by showing that softer side that you highlighted on, that you touched upon.
Well, yeah, not that all women are softies. It's not that so much. It's more. I think a lot of women didn't react positively to Poilievre on a few factors, and some are honestly personal. I think it's a reassurance piece. Younger women do have more support for Poilievre than older women.
Mm-hmm.
Older voters generally do, and that's because his foil is Mark Carney. If his foil was Trudeau, I think it would be a different story. And I take the perfect case as my neighbor. My neighbor is a classic case. She said when Trudeau was there, she was going to vote for Poilievre. And then when Mark Carney got elected, she said, "Oh, great, I don't have to vote for Poilievre now." Literally, those were her words.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that kind of sums it up, is that people were, a lot of them, and a lot of women too, there's something called the ick factor, which is something that is not it's a gut feeling, and usually it describes it in a romantic situation, but you can get the ick factor for anything. And some of the language Poilievre used around, biological clocks and this kind of thing. It's not the language that a lot of women necessarily feel comfortable with coming from him. And if it's women discussing that stuff, it's fine. There's also the specter of abortion, which always hangs over the Conservative Party like a bad smell, even though that's not something that Poilievre has talked about, but it's there in the ether, and people talk about it because people around Poilievre, some of them are more right of center, and you think of people like, that might be in his cabinet, like a Leslyn Lewis, or Roman Baber, who during the convoy was really very, very, anti-vax and pro-rights, and this, pro-rights to protest in Ottawa and this kind of thing. And there's a whole bunch of factors, and it's not totally a gender thing, but it's kind of a gender thing in some respects. But you got to say the biggest fans of Carney are boomer men. So explain that one to me. It's a self-identifying, it could be a self-identification thing too. And that's the other thing, is that maybe Carney appears more trustworthy. There's a lot of things in there. I think you need a focus group to really tease it out.
It's also like, I own my home and now it's worth $2 million. Let's keep it that way. I mean, there's a big part of that.
Not anymore, I'll tell you. The prices are dropping, but this is, there's a security aspect to it, that older voters feel they are more secure and they want to keep that, whereas younger voters have nothing to lose and can't get a foot on the ladder, and so Poilievre is still more appealing to them.
Okay, so I want to just get to this aspect, because part of the way I see this weekend's vote is like, it's not like there's another option on the table. Like I think they should have tried to get a 99% because there could be a spring election. Like, it's not like they were going to jettison Pierre Poilievre at this point when we're going to have an election this year. So let's get into that, because you wrote a piece for the National Post, saying that, hey, we're headed towards that spring election.
I think we are. Put it this way, if Carney, I think, read the tea leaves, I think he probably should, because the second half of this year is loaded with bad things and minefields. And if he wants to get a majority, unless he can get one from floor crossers, which is still discussed, and, paradoxically, the high score Poilievre got might actually work against him on that factor, against Poilievre, that is, because if people are in his caucus thinking, I'm tired of working for this guy, well, he's going to be there now for, longer than you thought, so maybe they'll leave. But unless Carney can pull a couple more floor crossers over, his only option is to go to the polls. We're going to have, the Alberta referendum petition drive is happening now. You're going to have in July renegotiation of CUSMA. You're going to have in the fall the Quebec election and the revival of separatism, and possibly a separatist referendum in Alberta that they would hold in the fall.
Yeah.
So all these things are coming up, and Carney faces what in November? A confidence vote on the budget. So, the government could be brought down at that point if they're weak on the other metrics. It's a risk that he could take, or he could say, okay, I'm going to go to the polls before July, get a strong mandate, get a majority. I mean, it can't be worse than what he has now. If he gets another minority, I don't think the Conservatives will win, given the Trump factor that's still in play.
So let's just wrap up here on just the Conservative vote in general, because I've seen two different ways of looking at it, and that is even the last poll that came out last week, National Post Leger poll. The Conservatives were up by a point. Even though they're now 8 points behind the Liberals, they were still up. It's that NDP collapse. So speaking of parties that are leaderless and might be headed to down a more extreme path, isn't that all part of this as well, is that it seems like the Liberals have the whole left for themselves?
Well, they do, and that's the other thing, is that they have to, the NDP is going to choose a new leader. I believe that is in April, if I'm not mistaken, when they're doing that.
Yep.
So again, there's a window for an election, because you don't want to have an election where the other party has no leader, but you also don't want to give that leader time to define themselves and get support, right? If they're new in the job, and none of these folks are household names. Right now it's looking like Avi Lewis has a higher chance of winning according to fundraising numbers, that kind of thing. But, and he's relatively known, but not still a household name.
Yeah.
So, that would be another reason to go, because you're right. If the NDP surges, the Liberals will lose out. The Conservatives would need the NDP to grow if they would hope to win. So Carney, again, to nip that in the bud.
Yeah, and that's it. I'm looking at these polls. Well, why is there an 8-point lead for the Liberals where the NDP are at 6%? I mean, there's your answer, right? Okay, listen, Tasha, you're great. Come back anytime, okay?
Okay, thanks. Bye, Elias.
That's a commentator, Tasha Kheiriddin, right there.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.